Drum apps and courses are so good now, but still, they don't call you out when you're learning a bad habit or working on a technique that's actually slowing down your progress. Over the last 2.5 years, I've been learning drums every day. Okay, maybe not every day, but daily-ish. And in that time I've had injuries, repeated mistakes, and spent money on things that I just don't need. So in this video, I'm going to share 10 lessons that I learned the hard way, so hopefully you can learn faster and skip the frustrating part. Also, number 5 is what I've been working on for the last 6 months, and it's genuinely changed the way that I play drums. One thing that really separates beginners from pros is accents and ghost notes. They add dynamics, stop your drums from sounding completely flat, and sort of bring it to life. If you've ever heard a MIDI track, you'll know what I'm talking about, where everything's the same volume and the same velocity. And it just sounds pretty terrible and robotic. Here's a little groove and fill just to show you. Now listen to this one, same thing but using accents. So it's not about playing more, it's about playing with more feel. And that's exactly what these ghosts and accents do. If you're early in your drumming journey, this is probably something that you don't want to worry about or can't be bothered to think about because it's not much fun. But unfortunately, the repetitive motion of drumming can bring us these injuries. I recently had a bit of a wrist injury, so I've had to go back and relearn how to play with better technique. It was essentially just having less pressure and rotating my wrists inwards. But yeah, it's better that you figure this stuff out at the beginning so you don't run into injuries like I did. And this doesn't just happen to beginner drummers, it happens to professionals as well.
I hit really hard and I held the sticks way too tight. And I look back and it's awful, right? And I had really bad tendonitis in my left arm.
Okay, let's get back to some more interesting stuff. One reason playing with a metronome is great is that you can track your progress so easily. You can literally note down where you are and how much you've improved by. Some of you know that I've been a guitarist in bands for most of my life, and when recording, the click was everything. Not every band uses one live, but in the studio, most rock and pop bands do, because it opens up a million possibilities. You can chop, swap, and change parts around without re-recording the whole track. Back to Sum 41 as an example, Steve-O32 would record multiple fills and they would switch them in to see which one worked best with the vocal melody and the guitar lines. Okay, I'm rambling. Next. Clickbait titles are all over YouTube, 30 days to this, 7 days to that, and I'm guilty of it too. But the truth is that technique and speed are very closely linked. I know half of you have just clicked off just then, but I have tried, and really it just takes time and persistence. So a way to take action on this would be to break down rudiments, parts of songs or fills, and play them over and over. Try and bring the speed up, and if you lose the technique, then bring it back down again. Simple, boring, but it's how you actually improve. And this next point will help with that too. So this is what I've been working on for the last 6 months. When we start playing drums, we naturally use our arms and our wrists, and that's perfectly fine and that's great. But when we get to a certain speed, we have to start recruiting our fingers. The smaller the muscle, the faster that we can play. So the only way to do that is to completely isolate the fingers and start practicing using them without the wrists and without the arms. I've noticed a huge difference in my playing from just practicing a small amount each day, isolating my fingers. So I definitely recommend that if you can. LS DePario is a great example, and he uses fingers a lot in his playing, and he needs to at those ridiculous tempos. There have been times where I feel like I'm nailing a song, like channeling my inner Phil Collins. When I watch it back, sometimes I've got flared elbows, I've got my bad posture, it's not looking as good as I thought. But it's so helpful to watch back your playing so you can see it from an outsider's point of view. It's essentially journaling on steroids, and it's a great motivator if you're looking at how far you've come over the last year or 6 months. I don't know if you've ever tried drawing with your left hand, but it's very, very difficult. And it's the same with drumming. We have a dominant hand and then a weaker hand. And the only way to sort of let it catch up is to give it that attention that it needs. and focus on that hand a little bit more than your other. At first it's very frustrating and boring as well, but it's definitely worth the time and effort that you put in, and a practice pad is perfect for that. Or you could learn to play open-handed, which is another great method of developing both your hands. One thing that I sort of realised over the last year is that when you watch tutorials online of people playing rudiments and things like that, the drummer is playing each stroke with a decent amount of power, which is fine on a practice pad, but when you take it to a snare, which is much louder, the contrast between the accents and the ghost notes isn't enough. So what I'd recommend doing is practicing with really soft, low strokes when you're practicing rudiments. And what this does is it really helps your ghost notes and accents, and therefore your overall dynamics will be better. Basically the snare is ridiculously loud, so to get a good ghost note you have to play really, really quietly. Feet need some extra love, especially if you just use a practice pad. For all the practice pad practices out there, we need to remember that our feet are really important. Our hands are going to be unstoppable, but we need to definitely give some love to our feet. I've talked about isolating limbs so much in this video, but it is really important. And if you can isolate your feet as well, that's going to be even better. But if you're practicing at home on a practice pad, even just hitting your feet on the floor to the metronome is going to help with your timing and get you a bit used to using your feet while you're playing with your hands. I use a bass drum practice pad when I'm at home, and this has been a great investment for me because it's made sure that I can practice with my feet. I remember hearing this way back when I started, and I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna continue putting the metronome up faster and faster, and it just didn't work. I got to a point where I couldn't get any faster and I had to go back and get better technique, and that helped to increase my speed. Usually if you can't get a groove or feel fast enough, either it's your technique needs more work or the brain just doesn't know the pattern well enough for it to be on autopilot. So with that in mind, going back and working on a slower version is the way to get that pattern on autopilot and also to improve your technique. One thing that I've thought about recently is if I'm playing something and I'm messing up more than 50% of the time, then my brain's going to think that I'm wanting to mess it up. So we need to get to a point where we're playing it well most of the time to be able to speed it up. And that's it, now we're pro drummers. Thanks so much for joining me on my drumming journey. I'm still very much in the learning phase too, so it's great for me to share these ideas and thoughts with you. If you've got any for me, please feel free to leave them in the comments. YouTube is probably going to recommend a video right there. Thanks so much for watching, keep hitting stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.